I'll keep this recording pretty brief. It's just going to tie in and be kind of an introduction for this journal. As soon as you finish watching my little intro clip here, then I want you to go watch the speech that General Patton gave. Now, this isn't literally the real General Patton, although the actor that plays him does look a lot like the real guy. Also, if you haven't watched my lecture on the North Africa campaign and the 3 key generals that I covered today, you should have gone and viewed those first. And then this will kind of correspond to it. Now, I've already given you, if you've watched those lectures, I've given you quite a bit of information on Old Blood and Guts, this really crusty, tough old general that's leading American troops in North Africa and then eventually in Italy and up in France and fighting through into Germany. Now, I told you he is kind of a crude guy. He's very intense. He's loved by his soldiers, but often hated by other generals and politicians. And that, for what it's worth, the Germans regarded him as definitely our best general of World War II, because he was often taking it to them and kind of kicking their butt. Now, for this one, I want you to watch this speech that he gives. It's like verbatim a speech that he gave to his men right before they deployed and went off to go fight in North Africa. He is an intense dude. He doesn't mince words at all. The only thing different from the real speech that he gave to the speech that you're going to see here is that this was the intro to a movie that's called Patton. That's all made about his war experience through World War II. The only difference between the real speech and the speech from the movie is they edited out about 30 F-bombs. I guess anywhere where it would make sense to have an F-bomb, the F word in it, throw that in your mind, because that's how the general really talked. Now, he often was criticized for that. It was seen as inappropriate for generals to be swearing publicly like that. I mean, it's one thing if you're doing it back in the room as you're talking about strategy and stuff, but he would say it like very publicly and was in your face about it. Intense dude. And I guess his response when people would be critical of him for that, he would say, I speak like the common soldier. That's why the soldier loves me. I'm down in the trenches with them and I talk just like they talk. I'm also going to have a second little video clip that piggybacks into this, where it shows the one time Patton got into big trouble and he actually got his leash yanked by the top general, the general that was his boss, a guy named Dwight Eisenhower, who eventually in the 1950s is going to become a president of the United States. Patton goes into a military hospital, kind of a battlefield hospital. And he would often do this because remember, he's old blood and guts. He does very gutsy tactics, but his units often have higher casualty rates than other American military units. His heart went out, though, to the men that got injured or died under his command. And whenever he could, he would go give them Purple Hearts, which that's the award you get in the military if you get injured in combat. You would get a Purple Heart. And he would go give these guys, go award it to them in person. Well, one time he goes into one of these military field hospitals, and there's actually some reporters there watching it and some other officers, and he's giving Purple Hearts out to guys. He's saying prayers next to bedsides, talking to some of these soldiers, and then he sees one kid who is, I believe this guy was 19 years old, and this is a true story, and the kid is sitting there just like crying. He's freaked out. This is he was in high school a year ago, and now he's out there getting shelled by the Germans and seeing people get cut in half by artillery and rifle rounds and all that. And the kid freaks out. Everybody has a different level of tolerance for what they can handle and how much they can take, how much stress before they'll crack. Well, this kid, in World War I, they would have called it shell shock. He is having like a panic or anxiety attack, and he's sitting there crying in the hospital. Well, Patton realizes that there's nothing wrong with this guy. He's just mentally frazzled, but he has no actual physical injuries. And Patton actually slaps him around and beats him up a little bit, and then tells him, "You better get back out there on the front lines, or I'm going to shoot you myself." Which, a lot of people, that might be talk. With a guy like Patton, I think he almost might have actually done that. Word gets out that he did this, though, and it was a hugely controversial thing, and it doesn't play well when it goes out into newspapers back on the American home front. And he actually loses his command for a while. And this all ends up happening. This is after North Africa, as the D-Day invasion is about to happen, and we're about to go invade Germany. And Patton was beside himself. He was so mad that he got his command pulled away from him. He basically got put on desk duty for a while. Eventually, he makes some apologies, and then he gets back into into the fighting. And that would be like I talked about my grandpa's story. One of my grandpas was in his army, and that was when my grandpa served with them. Kind of after the D-Day invasion and the final stretch of the war, he fought in Patton's army through northern France and on into Germany. Anyway, watch the 2 video clips that I have attached to this. Hopefully this all helps it make a little bit of sense, and then go respond to the Journal 5 questions that I have posted, where I want to get some feedback. Usually I get some pretty interesting responses about this guy, but be thinking about, is this the kind of guy who we should have like leading our army? Is he the kind of guy that if you were drafted and got thrown into combat, would you want a guy like this leading you? So I'm going to ask you for some feedback on him. All right. I hope you find him interesting. I hope you like the movie clips. That's what I got for you today. Good luck answering the journal entry.